Hi, I'm Brien Lundin, editor of Gold Newsletter, and I am here in Stillwater, Minnesota for a boutique conference put on by Big Rock Industries, which is a great event here. We're getting a number of investors. We're going to talk about the metals and mining market, but we're also showcasing a few really exciting companies, one of which is Astra Exploration. Brian Miller is the CEO, director, co-founder, chief bottle washer.
Wear all hats.
Brian, you what you do very well. I mean, I know you do a lot of things for Asher. One of the things you do very well is explain the exploration story, and you were kind enough to do that for me last year for Gold Newsletter, and it was a compelling story then, and I jumped on the chance to get it into our recommended portfolio in Gold Newsletter. It's done very well since then, but it's done very well not just because of this raging gold bull market, but because your thesis, your theory that you set out beforehand has been proven by the drill bit. So your project in Argentina, La Manchuria, is a project that attracted you. You have another couple of projects we can talk about later in Chile that are very exciting in their own right, but you seized this opportunity because you saw where previous efforts were perhaps not interpreting the geology to the full advantage. To talk to us a little bit about what you saw and what that opportunity represented.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely, my pleasure to introduce you to the story. I'm certainly glad we made the connection when we did. To take kind of a step backwards, you mentioned we had the projects in Chile that we'd worked on, and they're good projects, but we just weren't getting any market value for them. And this project in Argentina was something that our head of exploration, Diego Guido, had put in front of us. I gave him the mandate. I said, look, we're not getting value for these projects. I told him, I said, find me something that's got high-grade, multi-million ounce potential anchored by an existing resource. And he laughs in my face on the computer screen. And he says, you want me to find a unicorn?
But it ticks all those boxes. Yeah.
He said, yeah, exactly. He goes, you want me to find a unicorn? And I said, yeah. I said, I know we're looking in Chile, but tell me where we need to look. You've seen more of these things across the world than anyone I know. Tell me where to look. And he stops for a second. He says, can I look in Argentina? That's his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I said, depending on the province. And he says, Santa Cruz? Yeah. And within 60 seconds, he didn't miss a beat. He just goes, I know the project we need. It's called La Manchuria. He said he was on it 20 years ago as a junior geo. He goes, it's got fantastic grade. He said, I would have taken a different approach to exploration there. It's drilled out as a bulk tonnage, but there's feeder zones that should be looked after. That should be the primary focus. So, okay, well, 60 seconds, you've held up your end of the bargain, and so I did mine, and it took us 13 months to get the deal done.
Yeah.
But he had completely reconstructed the geological model. It's a high-grade vein system that it's previously been drilled out as a bulk tonnage target.
Yeah.
But the high-grade feeders are, these are potentially structures or systems, that concentrate the grade along maybe a different strike than what the actual vein is. So we're still wrapping our head around that and developing that. But we did a very modest 2,500 meter program in April-May this year and confirmed Diego's geological model, and we had some fantastic hits.
Yeah. And it's a story, as I think of it, it is a great story. A lot of the big discoveries in the junior mining space were rediscoveries. And yours isn't so much a rediscovery of a project that was discovered, but a reinterpretation. And everything is falling into place. It's really a narrative that is opening up more and more chapters as we go along. And some that I think you in your team didn't really anticipate or are being pleasantly surprised by. So the reason, or one of the reasons why it was indicated as a bulk tonnage shallow deposit is because these veins kind of exploded toward the surface or horse-tailed into a lot of veinlets, and they kind of coalesce and concentrate as you get to depth. And a different structure for the high grade that runs a little counter to the strike of the veins, right?
Yeah, and this was kind of one of the hard selling points early on, was that this project had only seen shallow drilling, so all the drilling was less than 200 meters. I think on average about between 150 or 100 to 150, call it. And so there really wasn't the evidence in the drilling that these veinlets coalesce into thicker structures at depth.
Right.
We'd only seen one spot at surface. We had one vein that outcropped that you could follow up the ridge and see where it turned into these narrow veinlets within about 100 to 150 meter elevation change. So that was the first, evidence that we had of it, and then we confirmed that the system actually does do that with the drill bit.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. And again, this is all near surface, 200 meters or less that we did.
And so your first opportunity, the low-hanging fruit that you saw, was to depth. So we've got these veinlets that are going to likely coalesce. You saw the evidence, so let's go to depth and let's prove that theory, and you did. But now, as you expand along strike and you're finding multiple parallel zones, talk to us, explain that opportunity and how the project is really expanding in all directions.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. When you start expanding this thing in multiple dimensions, then it comes down to, okay, what should we focus on? Where's the next opportunity? Is it at depth? Is it along strike? Is it parallel structures? And right now, it's all of those. We literally have extended the main, what we consider right now to be the most important structures in the system. We've extended those along strike out past where it was previously thought they were faulted off.
Right, yeah.
So we've certainly extended the strike past those faults. We've established continuity of at least 200 meters of strike in a parallel zone, the eastern zone, that had never been established before. And then another 350 meters to the northeast, there's another structure that we've drilled into at surface that's another parallel structure.
Yeah.
So it's, like you said, you're literally expanding the near surface footprint of this in all dimensions.
Yeah, and when I first got excited about it and the theory that you had before the first drill program, and I remember we got that recommendation out right before the drill results came out, kind of got in under the wire, thankfully, that proved the theory. But the fact that theory is expanding now, I mean, back then we looked at it and there was some limitations along strike because of the faults. So now you've proved it goes beyond that. And is there any other potential limiting factor in any of those directions, either along strike or parallel structures?
Yeah.
And how big is the land position?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great way to frame it, because it's, when you look at things that we previously thought were limitations, and I say we've, like Diego's done a fantastic job of breaking those limitations.
Yeah.
So that limitation along strike, there's nothing right now that we see that limits the strike potential. We've gone out past what we thought were significant faults, but the offset was more vertical and it was very insignificant. So, we don't see anything right now that limits that strike length. And then parallel structures, this had only been drilled in a very small localized area. There's only one small area that outcrops, and you literally have kilometers in any direction out beyond that. That's never been drilled. To your question, it's 5,600 hectares is the property size, and it's a big rectangular block, and the drilling has been almost bullseye center. So you got a lot of room to expand in any direction.
And something that I don't think the market has appreciated, I certainly didn't until we talked recently, is that you're doing some geophysics to really see what that potential is, because there's a volcanic cover, so a lot of these are blind targets, but you're getting a geophysical signal from the mineralization that you know of, and now you're able to kind of project that for other potential targets.
Yeah, and that's, to use Diego's words, he views this as a very powerful tool for targeting the veins. And what he did was that we were able to source a lot of the historical geophysical data, the raw data. We got permission to use that. And then we added ground surface mag to it. And I'm not a geologist, so I don't understand how all of it works, but basically the compilation gave Diego a model that looks like it maps the rhyolites very well. And the rhyolites are the rocks that have historically carried the grade.
Right.
And so Diego's really pleased with how this is working. We confirmed that with the first half of this phase 2 program. And so we're going to look to expand that survey to more areas of the property prior to reinitiating drilling in just a month or so.
So that's an upside there. How big was the geophysical data as far as area, how much did that cover so far?
It's actually a very small area in the project. It covers the local area that's being drilled, so probably less than 5% of the property.
But where you've gotten grade, where you've hit mineralization, that's highlighted in the geophysics, so you can get that signal and expand it to the rest of the project.
Yeah.
Now, talk to us a bit about phase 1 and phase 2, how they were different, and where we are in phase 2.
Yeah. Phase 1, like I said, was a modest program, 2,500 meters, 11 holes,
Proof of
just
theory.
designed proof of concept, exactly. And then phase 2 is 10,000 meters in total, and we broke that up into 2 sections of 5,000 meters. We completed the first half, so 5,000 meters in December, and we'll start the next half in early March is what we're targeting. The idea there was to focus on the shallow targets, so to maximize the number of drill holes we could get with the first half of the program and see if we could expand that near-surface footprint along strike and parallel veins. And so that's exactly what we did, and it's worked out very well so far.
Yeah, you don't have assays out yet.
Not yet. We should have assays shortly. I really hoped we would have some before Christmas, but that didn't happen. But I do expect to have assays here in the very near future.
Yeah, and as far as you can tell, it looks promising, visuals.
Yeah, and we alluded to that in the news release. I don't like to get out over my skis, but I can say that from what Diego was seeing in the field, he was quite encouraged. We did say there were some areas where there was obvious mineralization, but we don't know how much. We don't know how many of those. But yeah, we've intersected structures where there hadn't been. Textures look good, so we're quite encouraged.
So if we're looking at catalysts, obviously that's the big catalyst. If you can get similar grades and show high grade, proving the next chapter in the narrative that we can start extending and expand that footprint. Phase 2 will follow up on that data?
Yes, that's right. The second half of phase 2.
The second half.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's a lot to talk about there because we had some really, really good grades with the first program. We had a couple holes that were spectacular.
Talk to us about some of the intercepts.
So hole 108, that was our best hole. That was 100 meters beneath surface. In this, going back to the notion of these horsetail veinlets near surface, that hole 108 was drilled 80 meters beneath a couple of historical holes that had intersected a series of narrow veinlets near surface that they had some interesting grades, like 3 grams of gold and I think 300 or 400 grams of silver. And 80 meters beneath those veinlets coalesced into a thicker structure, and there was one vein that carried 35 grams of gold and 8,300 grams of silver.
Wow!
And so near surface, and so that was amazing.
Yeah.
And then we had other holes that right near surface discovered new vein structures that had 17 grams gold, 100 to 500 grams of silver. But I think a lot of those got overshadowed by that spectacular hit. So you've got all these other structures near surface that have never been tested at depth. So how many of these things coalesce into thicker structures, and are they high grade at depth? And so there's a lot of potential there. A lot of, I'll call it meat on the bone, low hanging fruit.
Can you test more structures with one hole? I mean, are you hitting those with one drill hole? Can you do that, or
multiple structures with one hole? Yeah, it's really hard to overstate how many veins and veinlets are in this thing. It's one drill hole you might intersect. Diego's got it kind of grouped into zones: west feeder, central feeder, east feeder in the main area. But you might intersect, there might be 16 veins with additional veinlets in between. So you can test multiple veins, multiple structures with one hole.
So it's understandable that the previous operators thought they had a near-surface bulk-tonnage project with all of those veinlets, but the coalescing into the really high grade at depth, that opens up a whole new level of economics.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to take nothing away from the work that previous operators did, I think that they did exactly what you would if you're looking for a bulk tonnage target.
Yeah.
This was just kind of a reinterpretation and a different approach, looking for a different style of deposit.
And so we do have a big catalyst coming there. As we mentioned at the beginning, you have 2 other projects that you have that the market wasn't really valuing, but you think have really good value down the road?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about those.
Yeah, we still have the two projects in northern Chile, Pampa, Paciencia, which is right beside the Spence and Sierra Gorda copper mine. We still think the big story there is the epithermal story. It's a covered epithermal system, but it's also got a pretty attractive copper target on it too. And so that's one consideration. If you do hit on the copper target, what's a copper target worth that's sitting 15 kilometers from Spence and Sierra Gorda copper mines?
Right. Wow.
So potential, very high upside potential, and where we're at right now, minimize dilution risk. So, but then it's also got the epithermal story with several kilometers of vein fields that remain untested and very thick veins.
Yeah.
So there's that one. We quite like it. And the other project is in the Maricunga, which is high elevation. It's much more expensive exploration. Sometimes I like to say that's where juniors go to die. It's very expensive, but it's phenomenal endowment. And there's activity up there that's kind of got tailwinds for that region. You've got Rio 2 that's developing Phoenix. You've got Solaris Norte that just went into production. And this project in the Maricunga, it's called Cerro Bayo. And we really should change the name of that because there's another Cerro Bayo deposit. But it's a Solaris Norte type target, high sulfidation epithermal. And that's actually our favorite geological target in Chile.
But that would seem to be a right candidate for a JV or something along those lines.
I think so. I think that makes a lot of sense as that for a JV candidate.
And one of the things that's also interesting, and we have discussed before, is you look at the market, that there's still a lot of projects out there in this kind of nascent bull market that where you can put local knowledge to work into your advantage and acquire even more projects. I know that's nebulous and forward-looking and all that, and you can't really talk about it, but you are on the hunt for other similar low-hanging fruit, as it were.
Yeah, and I try to mention this. I don't always do a good job of it. I try to mention this because I do think it's an important part of our strategy. I believe that if this market does continue to develop into what a lot of us think it could, then a junior company with a high-quality portfolio of projects is going to command a much higher value.
Yeah.
You got pipelines to fill with producers that their pipelines have been diminished for years and even decades in some cases. So if this market does continue to develop and gets really positive and a lot of momentum, you're not going to be able to find those projects for any price. And if you can find quality assets now and get good terms on them, that creates a lot of deep value down the road.
Yeah, and the ability in this market to finance exploration and joint venture as well. But you've got your hands full right now, La Manchuria. The drill results coming out, big catalysts ahead, a project that is really just exploding in potential in every direction. Like I say, we got in the portfolio because I recognize, you expressed very well, the near-term opportunity to prove that theory. That theory's pointing in every direction right now. So very exciting point in the evolution of Astra Exploration, and looking forward to the next drill results and the next developments.
Absolutely. Well said, and so are we.
Thank you, Brien.
Thank you.